Judy. Nebra. Well, welcome back to the episode 3 of Friendly Discourse. So again, we get to invite, yes, episode 3, we get to invite our audience into your house to our 3 a.m. debates.
Well, we're simulating it because this is not my house.
Right.
What we're missing would be the sofa and the love seat and the sofa where we would be on it at 3 o'clock in the morning in our pajamas with a cup of tea.
Trying to stay awake because the conversation is so good, but we're both worn out, needing to go to sleep, so we take intermittent cat naps.
Yeah, but they need to understand that we saw each other only like once a month, and I tell you, it was just so rich and so satisfying to our souls. It was just the price we had to pay.
It was the price we had to pay, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
I did too.
So episode 1 was about submission. And so can you remind the audience what we talked about in submission?
We talked about submission, that in these intimate relationships, preferably the marriage relationship, that the spouses must have a submissive attitude to Christ, the vertical axle. When that relationship is in line, the horizontal plane is a piece of cake, because the wife knows that her husband is going to treat her as he loves Christ and Christ loves the husband, and the husband knows that he is to treat her as Christ loves her, and it just takes the relationship to a whole different place and plane.
Absolutely. And then episode 2 was about forgiveness.
Forgiveness. We do forgiveness for ourselves, and the Lord made it very clear. He says in the Lord's Prayer, most folks know the Lord's Prayer, that He will forgive us as we forgive others. But we also need forgiveness from Him because we do things which offend God. We need to forgive ourselves for the things we've done.
Absolutely.
We need to forgive others for what they've done for us, and we really do need to forgive them for what they've done to us, because they probably don't know or don't care, and they're exercising power and control over us, and we need to let that go. And then we need to get forgiveness from others for things that we've done to them. And many times we may have offended someone, not even knowing that we've offended them. It wasn't like we set out to offend them, but we offended them. And when they come to us and ask for forgiveness or tell us that we offended them, or it's revealed to us that we offended them, then it's really important for us to have a forgiving spirit. So forgiveness frees us of a lot of baggage, of a lot of luggage.
Absolutely.
So we can move into our future.
Yep, and ladies, so we can move into that new relationship with by releasing all of the baggage from the prior relationships. We can move into this new relationship, and this new relationship will be a healthier relationship.
Or ladies, we can stay in the relationships that we're in.
Yeah. I knew you were going back there. How about we move on?
We can stay in the relationships we're in and work on them, because we've changed the whole paradigm and the entire framework from which that relationship thrives, so that it can thrive. Okay, I'm done.
All right, so now we're going to talk about compromise. And this, again, is close to my heart, because I have been in relationships where I felt, once I got beyond the relationship, I knew that I sacrificed and compromised too much of myself for the sake of that relationship. And I know that there are a lot of other women who are in relationships and they feel like they're giving, but they're not getting as much. So let's talk about just the concept of compromise in a relationship. So is it something that is necessary for a healthy relationship?
You know, first of all, let's define words. Let's make sure we're using the same terms.
Okay.
Because compromise in the sense of negotiating is a good thing, usually, and it's necessary. That's the give and take. Life is a give and take.
Right.
And the object is to find a solution that's a win-win. Okay? That's one term of compromise. And that is an integral part of any relationship, period. The compromise we want to focus on, I think, in this discussion, is the compromise that goes to the core issues of who we are and the price that we're willing to pay in exchange for what we're getting. Now, I've made no bones about these conversations. We've talked about the men's panel, and then the ladies panel, and then we do friendly discourse. And I'm making no bones that I'm coming
You're
from
coming straight from the
I'm
Bible.
coming from a spiritual point of view. And there's some things in our lives that we cannot compromise on because it affects the vertical relationship. And there are core principles in our spiritual walk that simply cannot be compromised, period.
What are those?
If it is disobedience to a plain thus saith the Lord, that's a compromise you can't move on. We've been friends for forever.
Forever.
You know, I realized I could probably be, I don't know if I could be your mama or your big sister, but
You could be my big sister.
I could be your big sister. But anyway.
I can't debate and argue with my mom the way I can do it with you. So you gotta be big sister.
But the point of it is, we've been together long enough that you know that there's some core spiritual values that I hold. And they're non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
There's no compromise in it. So, for instance, I'll go ahead and give this for instance because it's just, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist,
Right.
and I believe in the seventh-day Sabbath.
Right.
And when I was campaigning for judge back in 1996, I did not, I can get better than that. We ran a law office together.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what was coming to my head.
Yeah, I'll use that example. And when we ran the law office, the office was closed from mid-afternoon on Friday, and I announced to everyone in the office, since I write the paychecks, this is a rule of the office. You shall not be in my office on Friday night until through Saturday night. That my office kept the Sabbath. And if I found you in violation of that rule, and it was the only rule in the office, you were fired, terminated on the spot.
Okay, wait a minute. It wasn't the only rule in the office.
I mean, but that was one of the
primary rules.
But that was the rule where the consequences were non-negotiable. It was clear, and if you worked here, you would have to abide by that rule.
Right.
If you did not want to abide by that rule, and it was comprehensive. You could not even take files from the office home to work on it. I mean, that was just how inclusive it was. So that, to me, is a principle that I'm not going to yield on. And in the marriage relationship, we took vows to be faithful to each other. That, to me, is one where I don't quite get it when, well, I speak for me. That's a non-negotiable for me. Now, you know, my husband's, I'm a widow now, but the point I'm making is that's for me. And so compromise in relationships must have a standard for each person. And some people don't have a standard. Whatever it is, they go with it. And other people say, no, I got a standard. And for me, my standard is the Word of God.
Well, let me just say, I don't want to leave the law office conversation because I want it to be crystal clear that as a young attorney, I think I was 22, 23 when I graduated law school, we loved that rule because that meant that we could go home early on Friday and we could not be forced or asked or expected to work on Saturday. Hello.
That's what had me in.
Absolutely, that was the reason. When you said that, I was like, yes, sign me up. I'm good. Give me my job. I'm great. And I can tell you, we were very faithful in following the rule. Very, very faithful. It did not happen. So so what I get from you, or what I hear you saying is that we need to make sure that any compromises that we're making in the relationship is consistent with the vertical.
It's consistent with vertical. The Bible is full of those stories. I love Bible stories. I love them. But I love the 3 Hebrew boys on the plain of Dura. King Nebuchadnezzar, King Nebi had built this big image, golden image, and everyone was supposed to bow to it. Well, the first commandment, maybe it's the second, but anyway, one of the first 3 of the commandments, thou shalt know the gods before me, thou shalt not make any graven image, and thou shalt not bow down. So the 3 Hebrew boys, like everybody else, was bowing down, and they went, King, we see the fiery furnace, and we heard you say you're going to make it 7 times hotter, but King, our God can save us, but we still not going to bow down and worship you. And so in the relationship, when we talk about compromise, there should be some non-negotiable issues in our own character.
Okay, so how do we reconcile that compromise with submission? I'm going to give you an example.
Okay.
Say our husband is not a believer.
Okay.
We married him anyway.
right?
We made this commitment. You talked about making your vows, and you made this vow with him. And then now you're working on being submissive to him. And he says, okay, so we're not going to respect the Sabbath in our house.
Oh, no,
I don't believe in that.
Well,
Well,
no,
hold on, let me finish.
take it out of that. Put it more into
Anything, church.
anything.
I don't want you to go to church.
That's
I
a
don't
good one.
believe in that. I don't want you to go to church. I want you to be home with me because I don't believe in all of that. Now you got the submission concept, biblical concept. Now you got compromise. So what do?
Very simple. We're lawyers. You go back to the objective standard. I have decided that my vertical relation is number one. That is dispositive. Everything else is run through that sieve. And so it's like, baby, I love you and everything. However, I love God more than I love you. And I'm going to have to trust God to take care of you. But I'm going to do what He told me to do. And for me, and this is really kind of experience because I know of a couple where they both started out being regular church attenders. And then the husband stopped going. And the wife stopped going too. And then the Lord spoke to her and said, I didn't give you permission to stop going to church. What your husband does is between him and me. What you and I do is between us. And as a result, she went on back to church and just kind of like, I can't. I can't.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about deal breakers, and you talked about, setting at the beginning of the marriage, should we go into this marriage knowing in our head or discussing with our mate what the deal breakers are? Or what these core boundaries are? How do we communicate that to our spouse?
I don't really know.
These are things I'm not going to compromise on.
I don't know, neither, if I would call them deal breakers, because many people are married. The Bible uses the terms unequally yoked, and it's a good term to use.
Right.
Where he's into partying and she's not. Mm-hmm. And they may have started out that way, and then one of them changed. Mm-hmm. And that happens a lot, because at the time they got married, they thought they were on the same page. I call it switching bait.
Somebody changed up.
They presented themselves one way, and whether they intended to change, they really did mean to do a switch and bait.
Right.
Or life just caused them to change, you still have the same result, a switch and bait. And so you thought that you had this, but you got that, and you're not really happy with the that you got. Mm-hmm. And now you're sitting here going, but I promised to be faithful. I promised to love until death doth us part. And people want simple answers to that, and the simple answer is this: you need to pray about it. Because there's nothing too hard for God. It's not too hard for Him to change the other person, nor is it too hard for Him to change you.
Right.
And when you change your paradigm, all kinds of things change.
Okay, so let me say what I think a lot of people are going to say when they hear what you just said. And maybe it's a younger generation, but telling me to go home and pray about it doesn't always manifest itself in change. Because not everybody have that type of relationship with God that you have. Not everybody knows how to listen to God. No, not everybody knows when God is speaking to them versus somebody else speaking to them and them talking to themselves. So I can't tell the women, go home and pray about it. What I'm looking for, and I know for my relationships and with the Real Talk panel, we always talk about building better communication between the couples. So my question is, she's going into a new relationship.
Why was she in the old relationship? Why are you gotta keep taking her to a new relationship?
Old relationship, new relationship. She's in a relationship. She's recognizing that she's starting to compromise more than she's comfortable with. What does she do? Does she sit him down and say, hey, these are the things I'm unwilling to compromise on?
Neither. Whether it's the older ladies, seasoned ladies, or the fresh ones, if you do not count God in everything, you are setting yourself up to experiences that could be avoided. My comment's going to be this. So you've never prayed before? Let me show you how to pray.
So what are we praying for then? What are we saying?
We're simply saying, Lord, if you're in heaven, I need you to show yourself to me so that I know that you know me and you care about me. And I got this problem. It's called, I got this man. And he's getting on my last nerve. And I need you to do what only God can do. Doesn't really matter to me whether you change him or change me. But I need you, God, to do something. And you know what else? I'm going to sit right here until you do it. And I'm going to keep praying to you until it's done.
So I don't get to do anything at the house?
You get to pray and keep your mouth shut. So many times we try to help God out. And when we try to help God out, we just make a royal mess of it. Just stop. Just
What is wrong?
Ladies, stop.
Okay, so tell me then. What is wrong? Okay, she's praying and God is moving. We know God moves. I'm not suggesting that prayer does not work, but I also believe that there needs to be some action, some outward action.
Libra,
Yes, Judy.
we don't know what action to take. We don't know what to do.
I can tell you what to do.
And you know what?
We can sit down, and I'm talking new relationship, because if we
Okay,
do
fine.
these things before the relationship develops, then maybe we'll see a change. But we can sit down as we've just met the new boo, we thinking that this is going to be a relationship, and we sit down and have a discussion, and I say, okay, these are the things, these are my core values, these are my beliefs, these are the things that are important to me. And if we're going to be in a relationship, I need for you to respect and understand and know I'm not willing to compromise on these things. Is that going to be a problem?
And you know what? Let's see. She's fine. She's an asset to me. You know what? I'll tell her whatever she wants to hear, because just like the women think they can change them after they get them, I'm thinking the same thing. When she's living in the big house that I put her in, and she's driving the Bentley that I put out in the driveway for the drive, and she gets to jet set all, you know what? She's going to sit here and go, so what you're saying is, if I break one of those core values, you're going to, oh, I know what it is. Is it Jennifer Lopez who did all of those domestic violence, abusive movies?
Movies where she's
Remember that?
writing, like Enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where the husband says to her, I provide you with this, this, and this, you know, what's a little beat down every now and then. Basically, that's what
Right.
that's basically what
Right.
the scene was. And so he's making an assessment of how you're going to be. He's making an assessment of what he wants from you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so he's going, I'll tell her anything she wants to hear. And no, and wait, don't do that, because we do the same thing. Women will look at a man and go, well, he's got 4 of the 10 things on my list. And I can work with the 4. And after we get married, you know, I'll be able to get it up to 8. Okay.
Right.
Bait and switch. We talked about bait and switch in the last bait and switch, and a lot of bait and switching. And that's why I'm saying prayer is so important, because we don't know our own hearts and minds, and we sure enough don't know their hearts and minds. We have no idea what's going on. You know, you and I, we're sitting in the courtroom and we're listening to these people, and we're just thinking to ourselves, they don't know what I know. They don't know what I know.
Just wait.
Just wait. In fact, this has nothing to do with anything, but back those years, you had a case. You remember that?
Which way?
Judge Padavana case.
Oh, yeah.
And the other side was just going at it. And then the judge looked at you and he said, well, opposing counsel, looking at Miss Williams, Miss Williams.
I was Washington then.
Looking at Miss Washington's face, I think she has something to say. And Miss Washington just kind of whips out the most current case law that just totally guts the other side.
Everything.
Okay?
And even to the surprise of the judge.
Even to the surprise of the judge. And so that's why you have to pray, because we don't know. And we just don't know.
But is prayer a substitute for communication?
Neighbor, I'm not communicating well, because what I'm trying to tell you is,
Right, we're not communicating
well. What I'm trying to tell you is, if you're communicating with someone, but God is not being counted in it, you might as well keep your
No,
mouth
I'm
shut.
not leaving God out of it.
Well,
God is in it. Okay, let me go back. Let me preface it a little bit. I prayed for a relationship.
But he didn't tell you right now, at this particular moment, have this conversation with him about this list. I know this. I've had enough experiences with that, with Jim, to be able to tell you. The Lord would say to me, nah, it's not a good time to have that conversation with him. Nah, you don't want to say that in this conversation. I know that from experience. 40 years, there are many times when it was like the Lord put the light and said, this is good time.
That's when you have a conversation with him early on before you're emotionally involved, you're not in love, you think he's a good candidate for this relationship, he thinks you're a good candidate.
But the Lord may tell you to be quiet because if you just wait a day, this just happened to me. I was so annoyed with something somebody did that I was home and I thought about it later. I'm like, that was pure raw emotions. Before the day was up and over, I got some information, communication from the other side that totally changed the whole thing. So you want to sit down and tell them what your deal breakers are? Well, if you wait 24 hours, you won't have to ask them. Good old Dean said, I can show you better than I can tell you. They will have shown you that what is a deal breaker for you, they've already engaged in it.
Okay, so I'm with you. I don't necessarily disagree with you. The thing that bothers me is I think that the reason so many relationships are so unhealthy is because there's a lack of communication. We know that from our family law practice.
Absolutely.
Lack of communication, lack of listening. And I think people are more apt to listen at the beginning before they get the emotional attachment. Oh, I'm not in love with him. I like him. We've gone on a couple of dates. Let me just put it out there so he can know what my expectations are. I can know his. So he can bolt if he wants to. Or I can bolt before my heart gets in it. So if I know that in the past I've compromised too much in a relationship, but I stayed in there because I was in love, I had the children, I had whatever. What is wrong with me saying to him at the beginning, these are my core values. These are the things that are important to me, whether it's religious based or whatever. And I'll give you an example because we talked about this on the panel. Some men in sexual relationships are more adventurous than women, and the women don't believe in those adventurous type things. But when he's in a relationship and the relationship gets it's been a couple of years, he wants her to try some things that she does not want to. And a prime example, a movie I was watching, and the panel discussed it, a threesome. That is something that is a violation of her core value. That is something that's not in line with her relationship with God. But her husband, who she's been with for years, said the sexual relationship, intimacy has gotten boring, and I want to invite another woman into this house, into our marital bed. You got submission, you got core values, you got compromise. What does she do?
Okay. You and I are doing a great job of not communicating well. I absolutely agree that communication is the key.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, before you attempt to communicate, that's when you've got to factor God in it. We need, each one of us must give God an opportunity to give us advanced directions.
Right, okay.
And that each one of us must be willing to hear him when he speaks. Because the night that we have decided is the night before our hearts are all in it, he can bolt, I can bolt, to have the conversation. He says, don't do that tonight. He didn't say don't communicate. He said don't do it right now. Don't do it now. Or you're in the conversation and you just get this overwhelming impression. Don't say what you're getting ready to say. So communication is absolutely necessary, but God needs to be factored in so that the communication is communicated. Now, I'm going to do a PS. That whole scenario that you just gave about the
That you never try to dodge.
girl, that is a violation of the submission rule. That's a violation of the, what rule did we just talk about?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness rule. It's a violation
You have
of
to
the
ask
compromise
to forgive
rule.
yourself.
And we're going to talk about freedom. And it's a violation of that rule. There is nothing about that on the submission rule, number one is husband, your relationship vertically is askew, okay? Which means I don't have to submit to that. Okay, we done with that. Okay? On the forgiveness rule, I can forgive you, but you got to do a lot of work getting forgiven on the vertical axis.
And if I do that, I'm gonna have to be asking. I'm gonna have to forgive myself for what I've done.
Yeah, and then you got a husband. You got to give yourself for what you've done. Then you got to forgive yourself for what you tried to get me to do.
Right.
Okay. And now what are we on?
Compromise.
And husband, you know I love you, but not that much. You were asking me to go into the same pit you're in. Nah. Both of us in there.
No, somebody got to pull the other one out.
And I may not be the one to pull you out. I remember these experiences where being divorced turns. See, we don't need to do a lot of stuff. All we need to do is listen to our clients.
Right.
Where the husband had gotten himself in a jam, and the wife found out about it, and so the wife began to call it in, reel it in, and the husband admitted. He said he knew that he had gotten out there. And he was praying and asked God to help him. And the wife looked at him and said, so you didn't expect him to send the wife though to help you, did you? Okay? So all I'm saying is we must have issues. And for me, those issues have to be spiritual issues. There's spiritual issues. Everything else we can kind of work with. But when it comes to a plain, thus saith the Lord, because when we get to heaven, the Lord is not going to ask us, where's your husband's ticket? He's going to ask you, where's your ticket? And your ticket is based on your vertical relationship. And if you just say, well, Lord, you know, it's the Adam story. Lord, that woman.
You sent me that woman.
Yeah. And the Lord put them both out. Both out. Okay? So, okay.
Well, I follow you. So as we close this section on compromise, what do you say to those women that are either entering a new relationship or deep into a relationship who are out there thinking or wondering if they're compromising too much? How do I know if I'm compromising too much?
You're going to know that you're compromising too much because you're going to do something that you may have never done in your life. You're going to finally pray about it. You're just going to simply say, Lord, you said that you hear and answer prayers. Well, I got a prayer now for you. And the prayer is, I need you to talk to me, and I need you to help me, and I need you to guide me in Jesus' name. And trust me, no one has ever asked God for help that he has not helped them. And these situations, Neighbor, are the ones, we want to do it on our own. We can't. We can't even control ourselves. We cannot control ourselves. So all this scheming and planning and calculating that we do.
Okay. Well, I accept that. But I think I'm going to add to it.
Okay.
In order for us to know whether we're compromising too much, we first have to get in touch with ourselves and our relationship with God, and we need to determine what our values and beliefs are.
Good counseling.
Because we don't know if he's pulling us beyond them if we don't know what they are themselves.
Absolutely.
And so in our prayer and meditation with God, we need to figure those things out.
Absolutely.
You agree?
Absolutely. And it's pretty easy to figure out. It's going to start with, thus saith the Lord.
And I like what you said in the forgiveness section. You said when you're contemplating whether to do something or not, you have to stop and pause and say, do I want to have to ask God for forgiveness for that? Nah. So when you're being asked in your relationship to do something that you know is you ought to stop and say, okay, how is God going to feel about that? Am I going to have to ask him for forgiveness? And if you feel like you have to ask God forgiveness, don't do it. You agree?
Well done.
Thank you so much, Judy. I look forward to talking to you next time when we talk about freedom.
We only have one more session.
One more, but then we go on to something else.
I love it.